Good afternoon, everyone. We want to thank you from Academic Innovation for joining us for the final Launchpad session of 2024. Today's topic is going to be discussing generative AI and its place within our course developments here at Embry-Riddle Worldwide. If this is your first time joining us or you want to market these sessions for next year, the Innovation Launchpad is meant to be a time where we are showcasing either a tool or a process or new ideas that are aimed to help inspire any future course developments or innovations, and gives you an opportunity to learn about that tool or process's functionality or potential applications and benefits and design opportunities. Our presenters today are Dr. Alyssa Dinero, our Senior Generative AI Solutions Specialist, Sarah Nordine, who is the Director of Instructional Design and Development for the College of Business, and me, I am the College of Business's Instructional Technologist. Our session objectives today are meant to help you understand, one, what the role of generative AI is within our course development process, also to help you identify some practical steps that would help integrate AI into our courses. We're going to showcase some examples of generative AI being integrated into courses that are running or planning to run, and we're going to have an opportunity to discuss any challenges or considerations that you all might have. So what is really bringing us here today? A reason that we wanted to be able to feature generative AI and our course development process to you all is that we want to really have you understand what AI's impact is on the future of learning. So for a survey of instructors within the United States that was conducted within this past 2024 year, we see that currently, on average, there are only about 18% of higher education instructors who are utilizing AI tools in some way within their teaching. However, those same instructors do acknowledge that within the next 2 years, 91% of them acknowledge that AI will have some sort of impact on teaching or any changes that might be within their courses within higher education. So we are very privileged here within Academic Innovation to have internal resources that are encouraging you all as developers and instructors to be able to play with AI and see how it can be innovative and help all of your students in their future careers. So with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Alyssa Dinero to showcase first what her role is, and then showcase courses that are currently utilizing generative AI.
Hi, thanks, Selena. So a little bit about my role as a senior generative AI solution specialist. I work with a lot of our faculty members to support course developments, collect data on our course developments involving generative AI components, and all in all, help us to figure out what is happening in our courses regarding generative AI, what the needs are, what our student needs are, what our faculty needs are, and also, collecting data on what's working and what's not working. So as a part of that, we developed the generative AI course development consultation process, which we're going to highlight a little bit later in this session. But what this offers to our course developers is the opportunity to brainstorm their ideas a bit further, get some resources helping them to kind of better flesh out those assignments to make them clearer for their students. And also the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of others, as well as, what has really gone right in other courses. So this process is available to all course developers, and we're going to discuss that a little further today. But first, and finally at the bottom there, I do also help support some really cool pilot projects, and we've got a lot of great innovation going on here at Worldwide. I wanted to mention that. But so first, I want to show you some some really awesome assignments that have currently been developed in our worldwide courses and that highlight some of the components of what I would recommend to you now, and also if you did choose to have a generative AI consultation, that make for an assignment that incorporates generative AI that's going to be successful. And so the first of these components, and I apologize if you were at the AI Summit, this is going to be a slight overlap, but I did want to set the stage for us here today by giving an overview of what makes an assignment successful with generative AI typically. So the first is that a good assignment incorporating generative AI fully explains to the students why they're using generative AI and what the students are going to learn from using generative AI in their assignments. So this could be why that's going to set them up to be a more effective and efficient professional in their field, why generative AI is going to help them learn, help them further their accomplishment of the module objectives or learning outcomes for their course. And the next, and this one's often overlooked, but providing really clear directions for the students. So often we think of our students and, they're typically, maybe a little bit younger than us. Maybe we think, okay, these students everywhere are really just so ahead of us in generative AI use. They're all using generative AI. They all have a ChatGPT account. And what we found, both anecdotally and actually surveying our students and collecting data, was that in fact, there's still a fairly high percentage of our students who have never used a generative AI tool before. And so that's why if you're going to introduce a new tool, it's really important to clearly outline what the students are going to do with that tool, how they're going to do that, and every button they need to press along the way to be successful. So that's also something that we can help you with as part of the generative AI consultations, is to give you some resources that are pre-built that you can load into your classes so you don't have to do all these things from scratch by yourself. And finally, implementing generative AI in your assignments strategically so that it supports the learning outcomes of your class and aligns with the module objectives of your module, supports what students are going to be doing in that assignment, can really make a big difference in the way that students perceive the assignment and the learning that they actually achieve, the critical thinking that they achieve when doing the assignment. So moving on into our examples, I want to start with an example from MISA 386, Fundamentals of Information System Security. So this is also from developer Mike Wells, so give credit where credit is due. In this assignment, students throughout the course are going to be asked to create a playbook, a personal cybersecurity playbook, and they're allowed to use generative AI when developing their playbook. So what I mean by playbook is actually in this course, a playbook is kind of like in sports and football where you have a book of plays. So this is really a book of strategies that students would use or respond to different situations involving cybersecurity issues or breaches. So for each hypothetical scenario, students write a play or a strategy to deal with that circumstance. And throughout the course, they collect their plays in the playbook. So a few things I really love about this assignment and the way that it utilizes generative AI. The first is that the way that generative AI is used in this assignment is really spelled out clearly. And there's actually guidance for each use of generative AI that is recommended. And so now I want to actually show you this assignment in the course so that you have a better idea of what it looks like in real Embry-Riddle life. So here's our assignment, and you can see first the playbook is discussed. There's also references to how generative AI is going to be used in the playbook. But then we have this great section down here. And this is actually what I love the most. So clearly labeled how generative AI can be used. What's great about this is that it's not just telling students, hey, you feel free to use generative AI when doing this assignment. That's what we see a lot. It's just kind of a box that says, consider using generative AI. But instead, what this assignment does is provide students with ideas and examples, models for appropriate use of generative AI that you've outlined as being helpful in the context of your assignment. So this is really modeling for students. It's setting expectations. It's showing them what appropriate use looks like and setting them up for success. And often, we struggle ourselves as faculty members, as staff members, to think of, how should generative AI be used? What can it do? What would it look like if I used it in the context of this thing that I'm doing? And so filling in those gaps for your students can help them to understand how generative AI is used or could be used ethically and effectively within the context of your assignment. So I love these buckets. You can see here ones like generating ideas and problem-solving techniques, simulating real-world scenarios. Students might not have thought of that on their own. So really, the generative AI use that's modeled for this assignment is all about expanding students' critical thinking. And that's why I really love this assignment and the clear directions that it has for students' AI use. So moving along, our next assignment comes from Jihan Eidenar, who I think is here with us today. Hi, Jihan. This is for SCTY 315, Studies in Intelligence. So a few things I love about this assignment. So overall context, students here use a generative AI tool of their choice to think through a significant intelligence event. So think like Bay of Pigs invasion. And what students do with a generative AI tool is use it to help them think of different ways to view this event. So kind of playing around with the tool, imagine, to think of alternate perspectives, alternate ways of viewing the event, even alternate futures for what might have happened if different things had changed. And what's great about this particular assignment is that it actually leverages the things that generative AI is really good at, while also avoiding the typical pitfalls of generative AI in education. So by using generative AI for brainstorming, thinking of alternative outcomes, alternative perspectives, it's leveraging generative AI's ability to be creative and be really good at ideation and helping us think more broadly about some topic that we're considering. And so by using it this way, we're also avoiding the major pitfalls of using generative AI in education. And the major one is the hallucinations. Usually, most of the time, if I'm thinking this assignment is not a great fit for generative AI, or using generative AI in this way is not the best way to approach this assignment, it's because there's too much potential, too much risk of hallucinations giving students the wrong information or the wrong idea about what they're supposed to be learning in class. But what's great about this assignment is because students are just using it to think of alternate opinions, dream up alternate perspectives, alternate endings, alternate realities. So what would have happened if this happened differently, or if this didn't happen, what might have occurred? All of these things involve opinion, conjecture, different hypothetical futures. All of that is not fact-based. It's really just the idea is to build students' understanding and to jumpstart their critical thinking about this event, the events leading up to it, and the events happening afterward. And so really the hallucination problem doesn't come into play so much. The risk is very low because students are not dealing in factual information here. So just to show you what this assignment looks like in the real world, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up for you. So you can see here again, we have not only the description, the overview at the top, talking to students about what this assignment is and how they're going to use generative AI, but also why they're going to use generative AI. It's going to help you with your critical thinking in this process. And then the use of generative AI is clearly outlined in the steps that students are given to complete this assignment. So we have really nice, clear directions for use, and further directions down here as well, guidelines just to kind of further clarify for students what's expected of them. But also, and this is another thing I really love about this particular assignment, is that we have a reflection on generative AI use built in. So just to boost that critical thinking, that one additional level, once students are done with brainstorming and then finally writing their proposal after the brainstorming phase, then students are asked to reflect upon how they use generative AI, how generative AI might have altered their perspective, how this brainstorming phase may have changed their ideas, or where they found their ideas didn't accord with generative AI, they didn't agree. And so students are again asked to think through and think really critically about their generative AI use in this assignment. So moving along, but I will give you the opportunity to ask questions about any of these assignments. And I believe we have some of the developers present here as well. But just for the sake of time, I want to get through our three great examples here. So finally, we have MMIS 221, Introduction to Management Information Systems. Now, this assignment I actually developed in coordination with Barak Kankaya. So in this Introduction to Management Information Systems class, students are asked to think up an entrepreneurial idea, product or service during the term, and then by the end of the term, they will have kind of fleshed out their product or service. They will have figured out, how am I going to market this? Like, what's my idea for how this is going, how this product would work, how it would sell, who I would be selling it to. They figured out all those things, and then by the end of the term, they're asked to pitch their entrepreneurial venture. So what we developed, Barak and I, is actually a custom chatbot powered with generative AI that allows the students to practice their pitch. So much like the show Shark Tank, students pitch their unique product or service to what we called Eagle Tank, our chatbot, and then the eagles. If you've ever seen Shark Tank, there's the sharks. So we have the eagles, our potential investors, then give the students feedback on their project and prompt them to think further about their pitch through a series of pointed questions. We'll go ahead and model this for you, but just to set the stage a bit, what I'd really like to highlight about this is not just that it's custom for the course, but also it's aligned with the learning outcomes. And that's where I think generative AI assignments really thrive, is when you can clearly see, and the students can clearly see, how the use of generative AI is supporting the assignment they're doing and the overall learning that's supposed to happen in this course. And finally, I also love about this, this use of generative AI that it's limited. So students understand what they're supposed to be doing with the generative AI application. And because we have purposely set parameters for what this generative AI application can and cannot do, students' access to knowledge is limited, what they can ask is limited, and it's just, students are just limited to the actual role play. So let me go ahead and demonstrate this one. All right, so you should see the same thing that students see when they pull up the Eagle Tank chatbot. It'll say, "Welcome to Eagle Tank. Potential investors are ready to hear about your product or service. Let's hear your pitch." So I've preloaded this one in here so I don't have to do tons of typing. And so this is my pitch for a product I called Sky Table, which is going to be basically a fancy tray table. Not that creative with aviation inventions. And my investors follow up with me with a bunch of questions, kind of prompting me to think through my pitch a little bit further. So they're asking me here, can you tell us more about your product's value proposition and what makes it unique compared to alternatives on the market? So if I say something like, there is no other, this is going to be silly, but there's no other work table for flight like this. Keep it simple, submit. They're going to prompt me to elaborate further. What stands out in terms of design, functionality, or features? So get more specific. And the reason I can predict that is because I actually programmed this chatbot to hone in on certain specific things. So I don't know exactly what it's going to say in any given situation, but I generally can predict the themes of what it's going to say in any given situation because it's carefully, like I said before, programmed and limited to do one specific thing. So after students go back and forth, and the investors give them, some pointed questions, the conversation ends, then students receive feedback on their pitch, what they did well and what they can work on before they actually submit the real pitch as the final assignment for the course. One other thing I wanted to highlight is that this system, it's actually something that we can replicate for you if you think this is a good fit for your class. And what I mean by replicate is that, if you have a specific role play scenario, or you have a specific use of generative AI, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a role play scenario, but something that you think would be a good fit for your class that aligns with the learning outcomes, and it's going to be, you want it to be really limited. So you don't want students to have access to all of ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever you're using. You only want students to be able to do one specific thing. Then we can set that up for you through the generative AI consultation process. And it'll be nice and Embry-Riddle branded, just like this one. So finally, students can also export their chat as a file and then submit the chat file to you as a PDF. So you can see exactly what the exchange was between the students and the chatbot, and actually grade that if you want to make it a part of your assignment. So those are my examples of great assignments utilizing generative AI. And definitely feel free to ask some follow-up questions to me or the developers if they're on the call at the end of this session. But I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Nordine now, who's going to walk you through what the course development consultation, the generative AI course development consultation process looks like.
Thank you, Alyssa. And again, thank you to all the developers who let us showcase their generative AI assignments, because environments like these are really where we spark our ideas, which leads us to the next topic of where do you go to make your generative AI's ideas become a reality for your courses? Well, first, you must have your approval from your department chair. That is the number one. Then you will be going and reaching out with your instructional designer, and they will go over the vision with you so they can submit an appropriate request in write. From there, a consultation with Alyssa will be made, and also with the appropriate stakeholders, depending on the needs of what you're looking for your generative AI assignment. Based on the outcomes of that meeting, your vision will start to take place. After your generative AI assignment is complete, a course review will happen in order to ensure all best practices are followed. Then, after your course goes live, there will be a course follow-up and a reflection to see how did that assignment work with not only the students, but faculty members, to ensure that we have a really strong generative AI assignment. If we see anything that needs to be changed, we will make those modifications for the next time that course runs. And to help you along this whole entire process, we have created you some resources that we're going to put into the chat. So during your consultation, we do have a rubric that I'm putting in there right now for you to look at. And then we also have some great resources to help you, because Alyssa, she's a great resource to help you with those consultations and going through that. We have the rubric. We also have a faculty resource area on your site that is able to help you. You have instructional designers that are all willing to help, no matter whether you're in College of Aviation, College of Business, or College of Arts and Science. All of us are here to help you through that process. And then also RCTLE, a good big shout out to them, because they've actually created some guidance in their new refresh ER for 2025. So there is going to be some added AI help for you as well in there. And then also, just learning about what the current readings are of generative AI. And we do have some of that listed as well for you to help you through that process. And if we have any questions, this would be a great time. If you want to go ahead and undo your mics, we'll be more than happy to help you.
Hey, this is Shelly Wizenant.
Hey, go ahead, Shelley.
Hey, I just had a quick question about the generative AI assignment development process. Is it possible to, and I don't really have any ideas at the moment, but I'm just wondering if it's possible to, or maybe it is already part of the process to trial run an assignment in like an existing running course before, it's, all in implemented within the course permanently, and then possibly make modifications based on the trial run?
Yeah, definitely. So we actually have a program called the AI Learning Incubator. Funny name, but that is exactly what that is. So we actually have small groups of faculty members who want to do exactly that, try something in one course section before they commit to a full development on it. And then we have developers who do that as a small group, so they can, not only ask me questions, but ask questions to each other and share experiences. So that's our AI Learning Incubator. If you're interested in that, just let me know, reach out. We're actually looking to start a new round of this here shortly. So please reach out, that'd be great. Also, if you want to do this on your own or as part of the Learning Incubator, the first step is just to run it by your department chair. I wanted to throw that one out for everybody, make sure they know what's up, what's happening, and then let me know that you're piloting this. I might be able to provide some guidance, some resources, whatever, but also it's great for us and it benefits everyone else at Embry-Riddle if we can collect data on what did and didn't work. And then we know for the future how to advise people when they have an awesome idea they want to try. So definitely reach out. There is lots of opportunities to do exactly what you just mentioned, Shelley.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I'm one of those 82%ers who don't use AI in their courses currently, so I would definitely be reaching out for guidance before trying to do anything on my own. Thanks for the info. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And something to add to that is that even if your course isn't ready to come up for a development, you can reach out early and we can have those conversations earlier. As long as you have approval from your department chair, then they can reach out to your IDD director, and then we can see if we can pair you with somebody and start getting that going ahead of time, because earlier the better. Because, you look at the chatbot that Alyssa created with Barack. Sometimes that takes a little bit longer than your development process. And so we would love to have those ideas and those things started ahead of time if you know that's what you're going to be wanting to add into your courses in the future term.
Yulia?
Yeah, thank you. I actually follow up on what was just said. What would be the timeline? Yes, like does the timeline with developing these assignments coincide with course development timeline, or do you recommend reaching out early? So any feedback on that would be helpful.
It
Yeah.
depends on what generative AI tool you're going to want to incorporate, is what I would say. If you're going to be using more prompting, that's something that could easily be done within your time frame. But if you're wanting something very robust, that's something you would probably want to reach out earlier and see what the time frame is, because sometimes it involves other departments. So IT could be involved. We have Selena and her team might be involved. So there's just different things depending on what you're wanting to add into the course.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just to add on to that, also, if you want some kind of special thing made for your course, I think that's typically where we may or may not need more time. If you want something very simple, like a simple role play scenario that's going to be added to your course, that can actually be done pretty quickly. But it's once you start thinking of possible additional features that you want, that's where we might have to build something new, and it might take longer. Also, if you're really wanting to brainstorm some very innovative and creative ideas for your courses, then it's better to start a smidge early, because that gives us more time to really, think on it, brainstorm, come up with something really creative. But for typical things, I would say yes, this can usually be done within a course development timeframe. If you want something super innovative, it's best to start a smidge early. Jeff, I think you had your hand up next.
Hi, everybody. Jeff here. As we may know, I developed the IT 109 course, and I'm actually CSCI 109, excuse me, it's changed names a long time ago. But we're going through an update right now, and I'm evaluating Gen AI for inclusion as in this foundational course that actually teaches students how to leverage Excel, Word, PowerPoint. In fact, there are a lot of integrations. I can go out and I can generate a presentation with a few words, and it will fill in the blanks. So I'm working on some ideas to structure it in such a way where students learn and appreciate how to leverage the technology, but then stand on its shoulders to make their content even better. For example, evaluate it, improve it, edit it, and so forth. But where I'm kind of stuck on, and I spoke with some fine folks about this earlier today, is how do we evaluate the student work on the other end to assess their effective use of the Gen AI tool, when, in the rubric and so forth? How do we call them out when they use it too much? Can we? I mean, are we allowed to? Things like that. So I think there's a little, at least for me, a little gap there on how to assess student effective use of the tool. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. These are really good points. And this is also something that we would work with you on in the generative AI course development process. It's not just the brainstorming, although I realize now I highlighted a lot of that, but also we do work with you to come up with the best assessment strategy, coming up with a rubric, thinking through what exactly you're going to grade. And sometimes that does involve a bit of creativity. So like I said before, there are assignments where, say, for example, you want to do something like have your students engage in this role play scenario, and their job is to communicate effectively. Say it's a communication class. They're going to role play the scenario in which they're the boss and they have to deliver difficult news to an employee. It might make sense for you to grade what they did in the chat. So the student exports the chat, gives it to you, and you grade how effectively they communicated what they were supposed to communicate based on the criteria that you set out. So, think about if a student actually had to do this with another student, how would you grade that? It requires a lot of times, a lot of revising how we currently have our rubrics set up in order to incorporate generative AI, but there are ways to do it effectively. And, for each individual case, that's something that we could work with you on. I did want to address a couple of questions in the chat. So regarding the custom chatbot platform, yes, it is powered through the ChatGPT API, but that does not mean that students have to have any kind of account. Students, in fact, don't have to sign up for anything. They don't have to pay for anything. This is the pay. I mean, it's all paid when you do the API. So Embry-Riddle is paying for essentially the use of the model on the back end to power what we've built. But students are not involved in any sort of paying or any sort of account creation. There's nothing, concerning like, data collection for the students that they need to worry about. This is all happening through Embry-Riddle, our IT department. It's all internal. Okay. I hope I answered that question, Dave. Roth, I think this is a great point. And so Roth has said, integrating AI with guardrails is an excellent iterative approach. However, I'm apprehensive about integrating AI-driven assignments using external tools and encouraging student use for non-AI assignments. I think it's perfectly valid to set parameters. And actually, I want to move back to what Jeff was talking about a minute ago. I think the first step is setting your expectations through a good AI policy. And that's having one for your course, but that also might mean having a specific guardrails and guidelines for specific assignments. So maybe your policy, outlines that, these are the specific things that are okay to do with AI in my class. Say those are, for example, using AI for, sentence level revisions, using AI to help you brainstorm ideas. These are appropriate uses. Inappropriate uses, including generating written language verbatim that you use in your assignments, generating full thesis statements and not thinking critically about that content before submitting it. You can really outline what is and isn't appropriate. And then once you've set those expectations, you can say, anything like, unless otherwise indicated on the assignment sheet, do not do X, Y, and Z. And for specific assignments, you can say no AI use is appropriate for this assignment. For other assignments, you can say only this specific AI use is appropriate. And of course, that's not going to prevent students from, doing unethical things. We can never totally prevent students from unethical behavior, but it is a good start to tell them what your expectations are. And you can get as granular as you want to get. And I don't think that AI is appropriate for every assignment. It's really in those specific strategic use cases that we're going to see students get benefits from using AI. Any other questions?
Alyssa, your knowledge seems to have quenched the thirst of our audience, and just as Janice is saying, I want to thank you as well, Alyssa and Sarah, for taking the time in your very busy schedules to work with me on this presentation. And as the major contributors to our Generative AI Council, you really both are spearheading so many of the initiatives that we are looking to implement to help all of our worldwide students, instructors to be able to feel confident going into this new age with AI. So with that, I want to refer you to some common Embry-Riddle support that we always let you know about. If you need any in-Canvas support, our learning support and development team is available for you. And my team, the instructional technology team, is available for any new and current course technologies that you might have questions about. IT support is always around for your technical support issues. And we're thankful for RCTLE, who is always there to help with best teaching practices and their faculty resource site. Before you go, if you have an opportunity, please take the time to fill out the survey. There is a QR code here that you can use to your phone to scan and be able to fill it out. We hope that you found this session helpful, and if you have any ideas for future ones, please reach out to WW EdTech or any of the instructional technology team or anyone. Trust me, if they're in learning design and technology, they can find us. And as I take a moment to leave that survey QR code up, I'm going to go right ahead just to the final reminder where we are asking you to stay tuned for 2025's first Launchpad of the year. That will be on Wednesday, February 5th at 2 p.m. Stay tuned for that topic, and all recordings and presentations are posted in the faculty resource site on the RCTLE TV page for you to refer to a friend or anyone that you think might benefit from this session. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you in 2025. Have a great rest of your day and year.